Commander Sung stared out the large window on the main deck of his ship. Stars stretched out before him like tiny diamonds on black cloth. The human ship Thunderbolt moved silently through space. It was the biggest ship in Earth's third fleet, and Sung had been its commander for 5 years now. He enjoyed these quiet moments. Space was vast and mostly empty. Most days were filled with routine tasks and regular patrols. Humans had been exploring space for nearly 50 years, but they were still new to the galactic community. Most aliens did not like humans much. They called Earth a death world because it was a hard planet to live on. Earth had strong gravity, changing weather, and many dangerous animals. These things made humans tough and strong compared to most aliens, who came from gentle, garden worlds. The aliens feared humans because of this strength, and they kept their distance. The ship's computer made a soft beeping sound, breaking the silence. Sung turned away from the window with a small sigh. "What is it?" he asked. Lieutenant Jay hurried onto the deck, holding a small screen in his hands. His face looked worried. "Sir, we just got a strange message," Jay said, handing the screen to Sung. "It's from the Coalition." Sung frowned. The Galactic Coalition was the main group of alien species in this part of space. They rarely talked to humans directly. When they did, it was usually to complain about something or give a warning to stay away from their worlds. "Show me," Sung said, taking the screen. The message was simple. Asterisk to any human vessel. Our colony on Neri 7 is under attack by unknown enemies. Our shields are failing. Our weapons do not work against them. We need immediate help. We have children here. Please help us. Asterisk. Sung read the message twice. The Coalition asking humans for help. This had never happened before. "Have we checked if this is real?" Sung asked. Jay nodded. "Yes, sir. The coding matches Coalition emergency channels. And look at the last part. We have children. They know humans care about protecting young ones." Sung walked to the main control panel and pressed a button. A star map appeared in the air. "How far are we from this Neri 7? he asked. 3 days at top speed, sir," Jay replied. Sung thought for a moment. Protocol said they should ask Earth Command for permission before entering Coalition space, but a proper response would take too long. "Set course for Neri 7, he ordered. "And call Fleet Admiral Kim. Tell her we're answering a Coalition distress call." "Sir," Jay hesitated. "We should wait for orders from..." "Lieutenant," Sung cut him off. "They have children there." His voice was firm but calm. "Send the message to Admiral Kim, set our course, and tell our Marines to get ready." Jay straightened up. "Yes, Commander." As Jay left to carry out his orders, Sung turned back to the star map. He pressed another button, and information about Neri 7 appeared. Neri 7 was a small planet with lots of water and forests. The Coalition had built a science base there 5 years ago. Most of the aliens there were Lorians, tall, thin beings with blue glowing skin. Lorians were known for being very smart but physically weak. They studied life sciences and medicine. What could be attacking them that their advanced technology couldn't handle? And why ask humans for help? Sung didn't have answers, but he knew his duty. If someone needed help, even aliens who usually avoided humans, he would help them. The ship hummed as it changed direction. Lieutenant Jay returned to the deck. "Course set for Neri 7. Sir," he reported, "and I've sent the message to Admiral Kim." "Good." Sung nodded. "What about our soldiers?" "Captain Da has the Marines preparing now. They're checking their battle suits and weapons." "Tell them to pack the heavy gear," Sung said. "We don't know what we're facing." "Yes, sir," Jay replied. Then he added, "Sir, do you think this is a trick? The Coalition has never been friendly to us." Sung looked back at the stars. "I don't think it's a trick, Lieutenant. That message had real fear in it, and desperate people don't usually lie when asking for help." 2 hours later, the ship's communication system beeped again. This time, It was Admiral Kim calling from Earth Command. Her face appeared on the main screen. She looked serious, but not angry. "Commander Sung, I got your message about the Coalition distress call," she said. "Are you sure it's genuine?" "Yes, Admiral," Sung replied. "All checks confirm it came from the Lorian research base on Nuri 7. Admiral Kim was quiet for a moment. "This is unusual. The Coalition has always kept us at arm's length. They must be truly desperate to ask for human help." "That was my thought as well," Sung agreed. "I'm sending 2 more ships to join you," Admiral Kim said. "The Ulsan and the Busan will meet you at the edge of the Nuri system." Sung's eyes widened slightly. Those were 2 of Earth's most powerful warships. "Thank you, Admiral. But may I ask why the extra firepower?" Admiral Kim's face grew more serious. "Because, Commander, if the Coalition's advanced weapons aren't working against whatever is attacking them, then this enemy must be very dangerous. And I want our first official rescue mission to succeed." Sung nodded. "Understood, Admiral." "One more thing, Sung," Admiral Kim added. "This is a chance to change how the Coalition sees us. They think we're dangerous because we come from a harsh world. Show them that the same strength they fear can also protect them." "We will, Admiral," Sung promised. After the call ended, Sung called a meeting with his senior officers in the ship's main conference room. Captain Dai of the Marines, Science Officer Mina, Medical Chief Jun, and Lieutenant Jay all gathered around the large table. "We have new orders," Sung told them. 2 more ships will join us at Nuri 7. This is now an official rescue mission." "Do we know what we're facing yet?" Captain Day asked. He was a tall, strong man with short black hair and many small scars on his hands. Science Officer Mina shook her head. "Not yet. We've requested more information from the Lorians, but communication is difficult. Something seems to be interfering with their signals." "What do we know about the Lorians?" Sung asked. Mina touched a button on the table, and an image of a Lorian appeared in the air. It was a tall, thin being with 4 arms and blue skin that seemed to glow softly. "Lorians come from a low-gravity world," Mina explained. "They are physically weak by our standards, but very intelligent. Their skin can change color to show their feelings. They are peaceful researchers, mostly studying biology and medicine." "What weapons do they have?" Captain Da wanted to know. "Mostly defensive technology," Mina said. "Energy shields, stun weapons, that sort of thing. Nothing designed for serious warfare." "And what about this planet, Nuri 7? Sung asked. Mina changed the display to show a green and blue planet. "It's smaller than Earth, with lower gravity. Lots of water and forests. The air is breathable for humans, but it has more oxygen than we're used to." "That means fires will burn more easily," Captain Da noted. "We'll need to be careful with our weapons." Medical Chief Jun spoke up. "What about the Lorians themselves? Are they compatible with our medical treatments if they're injured?" "Partially," Mina answered. "Their blood is copper-based, not iron-based like ours. But many of our pain medications should work on them. I've downloaded their medical database to our systems." Sung looked around at his officers. "We have 3 days to prepare. I want all departments ready for any situation. We don't know what's attacking the Lorians, but we need to be ready to face it." "My Marines will be ready, sir," Captain Da said confidently. "Good," Sung nodded, "because this mission is about more than just a rescue. This is humanity's chance to show the galaxy that we may be Deathworlders, but we use our strength to protect others, not harm them." As the meeting ended and his officers left to prepare their departments, Sung stayed behind, looking at the image of Nuri 7 still floating above the table. 3 days to prepare. 3 days until they faced an unknown enemy that had the mighty Coalition asking humans for help. Whatever was waiting for them on that peaceful-looking planet, Sung knew one thing for certain. Humans would show the galaxy what Deathworlders could really do. The Thunderbolt sped through space, carrying Earth's answer to an alien cry for help. 3 days passed quickly as the human ship Thunderbolt raced through space. The crew worked non-stop to prepare for whatever might be waiting on Nuri 7. Commander Sung barely slept, spending most of his time studying the little information they had about the Lorians and their colony. On the third day, Lieutenant Jay's voice came over the ship's speakers. "Commander, we're approaching the Nuri system. The Ulsan and Buzan have arrived and are waiting for us." Sung walked quickly to the bridge. The main screen showed 2 large human warships floating in space. They were bigger than the Thunderbolt, with heavy weapons clearly visible on their hulls. "Open communication with both ships," Sung ordered. The screen split to show 2 faces. Captain Han of the Ulsan and Captain Yoon of the Buzan nodded in greeting. "Commanders," Sung said, "thank you for joining this mission." "Admiral Kim briefed us," Captain Han replied. "This is an important mission for humanity." "Have you received any more information about what's happening on Nuri 7? Captain Yoon asked. Sung shook his head. "Not much. The Lorians are still sending distress signals, but they're weak and broken. Something is blocking clear communication." "Then we should move in carefully," Captain Han suggested. "We don't know what we're facing." Sung agreed. "We'll approach together. Weapons ready but not active. We don't want to seem aggressive unless necessary." The 3 human ships moved into the Nuri system. They passed 2 gas giant planets and a belt of asteroids. Finally, they saw Nuri 7 ahead of them, a small green and blue planet that looked peaceful from space. "Scan the planet," Sung ordered. Science Officer Minna worked at her station, then looked up with concern. "Sir, I'm detecting unusual heat signatures on the surface around the Lorian base. And there's something strange in orbit too. Small objects moving in a pattern." "Show me," Sung said. The main screen changed to show a closer view of the planet. Small metallic objects were circling Nuri 7 like a loose net. "Those aren't Lorian ships," Minna said. "The design is completely different." "Are they weapons?" Captain Day asked. "I don't think so," Minna replied. "They seem to be monitoring devices." Suddenly, several of the objects changed direction and started moving toward the human ships. "They've noticed us," Lieutenant Jay reported. "Hold position," Sung ordered. "Don't fire unless they attack first." Everyone on the bridge watched tensely as the objects approached. They were roughly disc-shaped, about the size of a small car, with no visible weapons. When they were about a kilometer away, the objects stopped. They hovered silently in space, seemingly studying the human ships. "They're scanning us," Minna reported. "I can detect energy beams passing over our hulls." After a few minutes, the objects turned and raced back toward the planet. What was that about? Lieutenant Jay wondered. "They were gathering information," Sung said. "Whatever is down there knows we're here now." He turned to Communications Officer Park. "Try to contact the Lorian base again." Park worked at his station for several minutes, then looked up excitedly. "Sir, I have a weak signal. Someone's responding." The main screen flickered several times before showing the face of a Lorian. Its skin was pale blue, much duller than in the images they had studied. The alien looked exhausted. "Human vessels," the Lorian said in a weak voice, translated by the ship's computer. "You came. I am Chief Scientist Tello of the Nuri 7 research base." "I am Commander Sung of the Earth Fleet," Sung replied. "We received your distress call. What's happening down there?" The Lorian's image flickered badly, but they could still hear the voice. "They came from beneath. We were drilling, studying planet core samples. Woke them up. They attack anything that makes heat or uses energy. Our shields failing." The image became worse, breaking up into pixels. "Chief Scientist," Sung said urgently, "who is attacking you?" "What are they?" "Silicon life forms. Ancient. Intelligent. They control the planet's heat. They see us as invaders. Please hurry. Children in danger." The communication cut off completely. "Can you get them back?" Sung asked. Park shook his head. "The signal is gone," Sir. Sung turned to Mina. Silicon life forms. Is that possible? Rare, but yes. Mina nodded. Instead of carbon, they would use silicon as the base for their life. They might live deep inside a planet where it's very hot. Normal temperatures for us would be freezing for them. So when the Lorians drilled deep into the planet, some began. They might have disturbed these silicon creatures. Mina finished. And now they're attacking the base. Captain Dai stood up. We need to get down there. My Marines are ready. Some nodded. Agreed. But we need to see what we're dealing with first. He turned to the main screen, where the captains of the other ships were still watching. Captain Han, Captain Yoon, we need a clear picture of the situation on the ground before we send in troops. The Busan has advanced scanning equipment, Captain Yoon replied. We can get you detailed images of the surface. Do it, Sung ordered, and prepare a small scout ship. I want eyes on the ground before we commit our forces. An hour later, Sung and his senior officers stared at the images on the main screen. The Busan scans showed a frightening scene. The Lorian base was a collection of dome-shaped buildings surrounded by a glowing energy shield. Outside the shield, thousands of red-hot shapes moved around the base like waves of fire. What are we looking at? Captain Day asked. Mina pointed to the moving shapes. I believe these are the silicon life forms. See how they glow. They're generating extreme heat, probably over 500 degrees Celsius. No wonder the Lorians are in trouble. Lieutenant Jay said. Their species comes from a cool world. That kind of heat would kill them quickly. And look here, Mina continued, pointing to several places where the red shapes were pressed against the shield. The shield is weakening at these points. The creatures are concentrating their heat there. How long will the shield last? Sung asked. Mina studied the readings, based on the current rate of decay. Maybe 12 hours. No more than that. Sung made his decision. We need to act now. Captain Da, prepare your Marines for a drop operation. We'll land outside the base and push these creatures back. Regular weapons might not work well against silicon-based life. Sir, Mina warned. Especially if they're that hot. What would work? Sung asked. Extreme cold, Mina replied. Liquid nitrogen, ice weapons, anything that can rapidly cool them, and sound weapons might shatter their silicon bodies. Captain Da nodded. We have cryo weapons and sonic disruptors. We'll equip all troops with them. Good, Sung said. He turned to the screen where Captain Han and Captain Yoon were waiting. We'll need support from your ships. Can you provide air cover and additional troops? The Ulsan can deploy 6 attack shuttles, Captain Han replied. They can provide air support. And the Busan has a company of soldiers ready to drop, Captain Yoon added. Plus, we have 3 Thunderclap mechs on board. Sung's eyes widened. Thunderclap mechs were huge battle robots, piloted by humans inside. They stood over 10 meters tall and carried heavy weapons. They were rarely used except in the most dangerous situations. Send everything. Sung ordered. We'll coordinate the attack from orbit while Captain Dad leads the ground forces. Captain Dai stood straighter. My Marines won't let you down, sir. I know they won't, Sung replied. Get them ready. We drop in 30 minutes. As the officers left to prepare for battle, Sung stayed on the bridge, staring at the images of the besieged alien base. The Lorians had always feared humans because they came from a death world. But now, that very thing might save them. Humans were used to fighting. They were used to overcoming threats that would kill other species. They were strong because their world had made them strong. And now, the Deathworlders were going to war to save the very aliens who had feared them. Down on Neri 7, inside the failing shield of the research base, Chief Scientist Tello looked up as another section of the ceiling cracked from the heat. The base's cooling systems were working at maximum power, but they were failing. Several younger Lorians huddled in the center of the room, their skin barely glowing now. Will the humans really come? asked a young scientist named Melu. Will they help us after how we've treated them? Tello's outer arms moved in a gesture of hope. They're already here. I spoke with their commander. But will they fight for us? Melu insisted. These creatures have nearly killed us, and we have better technology than humans. Tello looked at the scanner that showed 3 large ships in orbit around their world. Humans don't have better technology, Tello said quietly, but they have something we don't. They evolved on a world that tried to kill them every day. Their bodies are built to survive. Their minds are trained to fight. Another crack appeared in the ceiling as the heat outside intensified. We feared humans because they are Deathworlders, Tello continued. But now, that's exactly why they might save us. A small alarm beeped on Tello's console. The scanner showed multiple small objects leaving the human ships, heading toward the planet's surface. They're coming, Tello announced, his skin brightening slightly with hope. The Deathworlders are coming. The drop ships fell through Neri 7's atmosphere like shooting stars. Inside the lead ship, Captain Dai checked his battle armor one last time. Around him, 30 Marines did the same. Their armor was heavy and thick, built to protect humans in the worst conditions. Remember your training, Dai told his soldiers. These creatures are hot enough to melt regular metal. Do not let them touch your armor for more than a few seconds. What about the Lorians, sir? Asked Sergeant Lee. How do we get them out? First, we push back the enemy and strengthen the base shields, Dai replied. Then we can think about evacuation. The ship's computer announced they were 30 seconds from landing. Every Marine grabbed their weapons, special guns that shot super-cold liquid instead of bullets. Each one also carried a sonic disruptor on their back, a device that made sound waves so powerful they could crack stone. Drop point reached. The pilot's voice said over the radio, "Good luck down there." The floor opened beneath them, and the Marines fell the last 20 meters to the planet's surface, their armor taking the impact easily. 5 more drop ships landed nearby, and soon over 200 human soldiers stood in formation on the alien world. The heat hit them immediately. Even through their cooling suits, they could feel it. The ground around the Lorian base glowed red-hot in many places, and moving across that hot ground were thousands of strange creatures. They looked like a mix between crabs and snakes, with hard silicon bodies that glowed orange from their internal heat. They ranged in size from as small as a dog to as big as a car. When they saw the humans, they turned as one and began moving toward them. "Form defense line Alpha," Captain Dai ordered through the radio. "Cryo weapons ready." The Marines spread out in a wide half-circle, facing the approaching silicon creatures. Behind them, engineer teams rushed to set up larger cooling units and sonic barrier generators. "Wait for my command," Dai said, watching the creatures get closer. They moved surprisingly fast for their size, flowing over the ground like living lava. Steady, steady. The creatures were 50 meters away now. 40, 30. Fire. 200 cryo guns fired at once. Jets of liquid nitrogen, cold enough to freeze anything instantly, shot toward the silicon creatures. Where the liquid hit, the glowing orange bodies turned dark and cracked. Many of the smaller creatures shattered completely. But there were thousands more coming. "Keep firing," Dai ordered. "Second line, prepare sonic disruptors." The first wave of creatures reached the human line. One Marine screamed as a large silicon beast jumped onto his leg. His armor began to melt from the intense heat. 2 other Marines quickly blasted the creature with their cryo guns, freezing it solid. It fell off, shattered, but the Marine's armor was damaged. "Medic," Dai called. Then to everyone, "Don't let them stay on you. Keep moving." The battle was chaotic. The human weapons were working, but the creatures were smart. They began to spread out, trying to go around the human lines. And there were so many of them. "Sir," Lieutenant Min called over the radio. "They're trying to circle behind us." Dai looked up and saw she was right. The creatures were flowing around their position, trying to cut them off from the dropships. "We need air support," Dag called to the ships in orbit. "They're surrounding us." Commander Sung's voice came through clearly. "Support is on the way. Hold your position." Moments later, 6 attack shuttles roared overhead. They fired cryo missiles into the mass of creatures trying to circle behind the human forces. Huge areas of ground froze instantly, trapping hundreds of the silicon beasts. From the second wave of dropships, engineers finished setting up their equipment. Large sonic barriers activated, creating walls of sound that the creatures couldn't pass through. The human forces now had a secure area to work from. "Captain Da," Commander Sung's voice came through again. "The Thunderclap mechs are dropping now. ETA 2 minutes. Day grinned inside his helmet. The Thunderclaps would change this fight. "All forces, hold the line," he ordered. "Heavy support incoming." The battle continued, with humans firing their cold weapons and the silicon creatures pressing forward with their burning bodies. For every creature the humans killed, 10 more seemed to take its place. The Marines fought well, but they were being pushed back step by step. Then the sky roared again as 3 massive objects punched through the clouds. The Thunderclap mechs had arrived. Each one stood over 10 meters tall, walking tanks piloted by a human inside. They landed with ground-shaking force behind the Marine lines. Each carried weapons bigger than a car. "This is Thunderclap 1, a voice announced over the radio. Captain Nam reporting for duty. "This is Thunderclap 2, another voice added. "Ready to engage." "Thunderclap 3, standing by," a third pilot finished. Captain Da pointed toward the thickest group of silicon creatures. "Target that main group. Clear a path to the Lorian base." The 3 Thunderclaps moved forward, their massive feet crushing any creatures unfortunate enough to be beneath them. They raised their main weapons, huge cryo cannons that could freeze an area the size of a football field. "Firing main weapons," Captain Nam reported. All 3 mechs fired at once. A massive wave of super-cold air rolled across the battlefield. Thousands of silicon creatures froze instantly. The glowing orange landscape turned dark and brittle. "Forward," Dite ordered his Marines. "Push to the base while they're frozen." The human forces surged forward, smashing through the frozen creatures. For the first time since landing, they were making real progress toward the Lorian base. Inside the base, Chief Scientist Tello and the other Lorians watched in amazement through their failing shields. They had never seen combat like this before. The humans moved with a coordination and purpose that surprised them. "Look at the big walking machines," young Melu said, eyes wide. "I've never seen technology like that." "It's not just their technology," Tello replied. "Watch how they fight. They protect each other. They move as one unit. They don't panic." Another Lorian scientist named Palo shook his head. "We always thought humans were dangerous because they evolved on a harsh world. We never considered that it also made them excellent protectors." Outside, the battle turned in the humans' favor. The Thunderclap mechs created a path through the silicon creatures, and the Marines secured a corridor all the way to the base shields. Captain Day approached the shimmering energy barrier with a team of engineers. He opened his helmet to call to the aliens inside. "This is Captain Dai of the Earth Fleet. We are here to help. Can you lower your shields in this section?" After a moment, a small portion of the shield flickered and disappeared. Chief Scientist Tello stood in the opening, his blue skin glowing weakly. "Human soldiers," Tello said, his voice translated through Daz's suit. "You came to help us." "That's what we do," Day replied simply. "Commander Sung sent us. We need to strengthen your shields and then get you all to safety." He waved forward the engineer team. They carried portable shield generators and cooling units. "These will help hold back the creatures," Day explained. "But we can't stay forever." "How many of your people are here?" 226, Tello answered, "including 73 children. Some are too weak to move quickly." "The heat." Day nodded. We have medical teams coming. Don't worry, we'll get everyone out. As the engineers worked to strengthen the Lorian shields, Captain Day received a call from orbit. Captain, this is Commander Sung. What's your status? We've reached the base, sir, Day reported. Engineers are reinforcing the shields, but there are too many creatures to defeat. We need to evacuate the Lorians. Agreed, Sung replied. But our scans show something interesting. These creatures seem to be controlled from somewhere. They move too perfectly together. Science Officer Minna's voice joined the conversation. Captain Da, I believe there's a central intelligence directing these silicon creatures, probably deep underground. If we could disrupt it, the creatures might become disorganized. Day looked around at the battlefield. The human forces were holding their position, but the creatures kept coming in endless waves. How do we find this central intelligence? He asked. The Thunderclap mechs have deep scanning equipment, Minna explained. They might be able to locate it. Day made his decision. Thunderclap 1 and 2 continued defending the base. Thunderclap 3 begin scanning for the central control point of these creatures. Roger that, Captain Nam's voice replied. Beginning deep scan. Inside the Lorian base, the human engineers finished setting up their equipment. The shields grew stronger, pushing back the heat from outside. Medical teams arrived and began treating the weakest Lorians. Captain Da entered the base to speak with Chief Scientist Tello. The Lorian's skin was glowing a bit brighter now that the temperature had dropped. Your people saved us, Tello said. We can never repay this debt. No debt needed, Day replied. This is what allies do for each other. Tello's four arms moved in what seemed to be surprise. Allies? But the coalition has always kept humans at a distance. Day smiled slightly. Maybe it's time for that to change. You needed help, and we came. Simple as that. Outside, the battle continued as humans fought to protect the aliens who had always feared them. The Deathworlders had arrived, and they were showing the galaxy what that really meant. The battle for Neri 7 had been going on for 5 hours. Human soldiers fought bravely against the endless waves of silicon creatures. The 3 Thunderclap mechs stood like giants on the battlefield, their massive weapons freezing hundreds of enemies at once. Inside Thunderclap 3, Captain Nam studied the readings on his screen. His mech had been scanning deep below the surface, while the other 2 protected the Lorian base. I think I found something, Nam reported over the radio. About 2 kilometers down, there's a large cave system. I'm detecting a huge heat source there, much bigger than these creatures were fighting. Commander Sung's voice came from orbit. Could that be their control center? I believe so, sir, Nam replied. The heat patterns match what we're seeing on the surface, just much stronger. It might be the main intelligence controlling these creatures. Science Officer Minna joined the conversation. If we could disrupt that central intelligence, these creatures might lose their coordination. They'd be easier to defeat. Captain Da, who was organizing the evacuation inside the Lorian base, spoke next. How do we reach something 2 kilometers underground? There was silence for a moment. Then Minna spoke again. The Lorians were drilling into the planet when they first disturbed these creatures. Do they still have their drilling equipment? Captain Dai turned to Chief Scientist Tello, who was helping weak Lorians board the human evacuation ships. Do you still have your drilling machines? Tello's skin pulsed with light. Yes, in the East Wing. But they're what woke these creatures in the first place. Using them again might make things worse. Or it might be our only chance to end this, Day replied. Can you show me? Tello led Captain Da to a large room filled with equipment. In the center stood a massive drilling machine. It looked like a giant cylinder with a pointed end made of some shiny metal. This is our geopenetrator, Tello explained. It can drill through almost any material. We were using it to study the planet's core when we found the silicon creature's nest. Day examined the machine. Could this deliver a payload? Something like a bomb. Tello's skin flickered with alarm. A bomb. We don't use such weapons, Not to kill, Dad explained quickly, but to disrupt. Our sonic disruptors can shatter silicon. If we could deliver a large one to this central heat source, understanding dawned in Tello's eyes. It might break the connection between the main intelligence and these attacking creatures. Exactly, Da nodded. He called Commander Sung and explained the plan. Sung agreed it was worth trying. We'll load our largest sonic disruptor onto their drilling machine, Da said. Then send it down to the heat source Captain Nam discovered. It's risky, Sung warned. If it fails, you might anger them more. True, Dai admitted, but we can't hold out forever. There are too many creatures. Proceed with the plan, Sung ordered. Meanwhile, we'll continue the evacuation. Engineers from the human ships worked quickly with the Lorian scientists to modify the drilling machine. They attached a powerful sonic disruptor to it, set to activate when it reached the heat source. The machine would send sound waves so powerful they could shatter rock for hundreds of meters in all directions. Outside, the battle grew more intense. The silicon creatures seemed to sense what the humans were planning. They attacked with renewed fury, focusing on the base's eastern side where the drilling machine was located. They know, shouted Lieutenant Min over the radio. They're trying to stop us. The two thunderclap mechs moved to protect that side of the base, their massive feet crushing dozens of creatures with each step. The human Marines formed a tight defensive line, their cryo guns freezing any creature that got too close. Finally, the drilling machine was ready. Captain Dai and Chief Scientist Tello stood at the control panel. Once we start this, there's no stopping it, Tello warned. The machine will drill straight down until it reaches the target. How long will it take? Dai asked. About 30 minutes to reach that depth, Tello replied. Dai looked at the battle raging outside. We don't have much choice. Start the drill. Tello pressed a series of buttons. The drilling machine hummed to life, its pointed end beginning to spin. It lowered itself to the ground and dug into the planet's surface. Soon it disappeared from view, leaving only a hole behind. Now we wait, Tello said. And fight, Dai added, putting his helmet back on. I need to get back out there. The next 30 minutes were the hardest of the battle. The silicon creatures attacked relentlessly, as if they knew what the humans and Lorians had done. Several Marines were injured when creatures broke through their lines. One of the thunderclap mechs took heavy damage when multiple large creatures climbed onto it at once, their heat melting through parts of its armor. Inside the base, the evacuation continued. Human medical teams helped the weakest Lorians onto ships that would take them to safety in orbit. The Lorian children were moved first, along with their caretakers. Captain Dav fought alongside his Marines, his cryo gun freezing creature after creature. But for each one they defeated, two more seemed to take its place. We can't hold much longer, Lieutenant Min called out as her position was nearly overrun. Just then, the ground shook violently. A deep rumbling sound came from far below. For a moment, everyone, humans and silicon creatures alike, paused. Then the silicon creatures did something strange. They stopped attacking. Some began moving in circles. Others froze in place. It was as if they suddenly didn't know what to do. The disruptor reached its target. Tello's excited voice came over the radio. It worked. Captain Nam's voice joined in from his thunderclap mech. Confirmed. My sensors show massive sonic disruption, 2 kilometers down. The heat pattern is breaking up. The humans watched in amazement as the silicon creatures began to retreat. They no longer moved as a coordinated army. Instead, they scattered in different directions, many disappearing into cracks in the ground. Keep your positions, Captain Dad ordered. This might be a trick. But it wasn't. Over the next hour, the silicon creatures completely withdrew. Deep scans showed them returning to smaller heat pockets throughout the planet's crust. Commander Sung contacted Captain Da from orbit. What's happening down there, Captain? We won, sir, Da replied, his voice tired but happy. The sonic disruptor broke their central intelligence. They're no longer coordinated. They've retreated underground. Excellent work, Sung said. Complete the evacuation. All Lorians are to be brought to our ships. By the end of the day, all 226 Lorians have been safely evacuated from the base. The human ships in orbit prepared to leave the Neri system. The battle was over. 3 days later, Commander Sung stood in the main meeting room of the Thunderbolt. Across from him sat Chief Scientist Tello and several other Lorian leaders. Their skin glowed with healthy blue light again. "We can never thank you enough," Tello said. "You saved our people when you had no obligation to do so." Sung smiled. "That's what humans do. We help those in need." "The Coalition has been wrong about humans," Tello admitted. "We feared you because you came from a harsh world. We called you Deathworlders, like it was something bad. But we see now that your strength can protect as well as harm." "What will you do now?" Sung asked. "Your base on Neri 7 is lost." "We will return to our homeworld," Tello replied. "And we will bring a message to the Coalition Council. Humans should no longer be kept at a distance. You should be welcomed as full members of the galactic community." Sung's eyes widened in surprise. Full membership? That would be unexpected. "But deserved," Tello insisted. "Your people risked their lives for ours. You showed courage and compassion that many Coalition species lack." After the meeting, Sung contacted Admiral Kim back on Earth. He reported everything that had happened on Neri 7. "The Lorians are proposing full Coalition membership for humanity," Sung concluded. "They're going to recommend it to the Council." Admiral Kim smiled on the screen. "Well done, Commander. This mission has accomplished more than we ever hoped for." "It's strange," Sung said thoughtfully. "For years, they feared us because we're Deathworlders. Now they want us as allies for the exact same reason." "Sometimes it takes a crisis to show people the truth," Admiral Kim replied. "They needed someone strong enough to face a threat they couldn't handle. They needed Deathworlders." Later, as the human fleet set course for Earth with their Lorian guests, Commander Sung stood on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. Lieutenant Jay joined him there. "Quite an adventure, sir," Jay said. "Do you think the Coalition will really accept us now?" "I hope so," Sung replied. "But even if they don't, we've shown them something important. We've shown them what humans really are." "And what's that, sir?" Jay asked. Sung smiled. "We're Deathworlders, Lieutenant, but that doesn't make us dangerous. It makes us strong, and we use that strength to protect others." As the ships jumped to faster-than-light speed, news of the humans' actions spread throughout Coalition space. The species that had been feared for their evolutionary heritage were now being seen in a new light. The Deathworlders had arrived in the galactic community, and nothing would ever be the same again.